And welcome back to Comic Frontline, everybody. I am Brant Fowler, aka the Gonzo Goose, back with you for another comic review. This time we are wrapping up the Lazarus Contract with the Teen Titans Annual Special. We're not sure what it's called at this point, but it's the finale of the Lazarus Contract, and it's a Teen Titans book. That's all we know. So the lead story is obviously the plot of the whole storyline of the Lazarus Contract was plotted by Priest Benjamin Percy and Dan Abnett. The lead writer of the main story of this book is Priest, the Deathstroke writer, and the letterer is actually the Deathstroke letterer, Willie Schubert. Pencils by Paul Pelletier, inks by Andrew Hennessy, and colors by Adriano Lucas. Now, there are two backup stories in this. We'll get to those later. There's a Teen Titans one and the Titans one, because this main story is mainly focused on Deathstroke, and there's a big thing that happens in each one of these stories that's very important to talk about. Now, we'll start with the positives, and overall, I think this was a fitting finale to this story. This whole story, if you're just jumping into this and you have no idea, you haven't been following the previous parts, is centered around Deathstroke trying to go back in time and save his son Grant, the original Ravager, who he blames the Teen Titans for killing in pre-New 52 continuity, Judas Contract, that whole thing. So where we find them at this point is Deathstroke has stolen Kid Flash's speed. He's gone into the past, and he's going to Grant, and every time he tries to convince him to turn away from Hive and go to the hospital and get help, it goes awry. And in the meantime, the Titans and Teen Titans are still arguing. Damian is being a jerk to Wally. Everybody's forgetting what's his name, Jackson Hyde. I'm not sure what. I don't think he has a superhero name yet, but he's basically the analog of the TV show, the cartoon Young Justice, Aqualad. So they leave him behind. They're being a jerk to Wally, Kid Flash, and the other Wally is running around with Jericho and trying to gather everybody and come up with a plan. And they know that they have to stop Deathstroke, but they don't know how to do it. So they finally figure out a way to meld their minds through the use of Omen and Raven together and create this psychic link, so Wally West, Flash from Titans, pre-New 52 Wally West, can go into the Speed Force and catch Deathstroke. I forget exactly how it came about. I'm getting way ahead of myself, because that was to get him out of the time stream, or out of the Speed Force. Oh yeah, they were traveling through. They linked up together. They traveled through the Speed Force, and they had to figure out a way to stop Deathstroke first. And Damian comes up with this plan, and I don't want to spoil it. Let's just say it's a very drastic plan, and it caused ripple effect throughout the time stream, of course, because that's what happens anytime you go back in time when you're a Flash character. And so it causes this whole thing that plays out in one of the backup stories, which I will be spoiling a little bit. I have to talk about that story, so be forewarned when I get to that point. I'm going to spoil it a little bit. Alright, so, and then they do that thing that I was talking about where Wally has to go into the Speed Force because Deathstroke disappears into the Speed Force, and they have to figure out a way to get him out. And anyway, again, I'm getting ahead of myself. The art, there's a beautiful layout on the credits page. It's this double-page spread, and you have this classic grid where you have the Titans and Teen Titans members on each side, and it's just this gorgeous piece of art with Deathstroke running and Ravager's there. And throughout, the art is pretty decent. I didn't like the way that Beast Boy was drawn. There were a couple of panels where he looked a little wonky, and I just didn't like the whole vibe of him. But overall, I thought the art in all three stories was pretty powerful, pretty, I don't know what the right word I want to use, because I always say dynamic or something like that. But you had a lot of movement in this issue. I mean, you got Flash characters, you got speedsters, you got Deathstroke running through the Speed Force, and you got all kinds of speed lines and lightning flying everywhere, and it was beautiful artwork. It kind of had a classic bit of a feel to it, but still modernizing a little bit. So it felt right for a Teen Titans themed book. And overall with the art, I had no major complaints, just little nitpicks here and there. With the story, now, like I said, the overall story, the structure of the story, what happens, the pacing of the story, I thought was fine. I felt personally a similar way that I did to reading Deathstroke. I'm not a fan of this writing style. It feels, again, it wasn't quite as dumbed down, which I described Deathstroke number 19 as being. It wasn't quite as dumbed down as that, but I still felt like I was reading a comic from the 60s and 70s. It was just, there's a certain writing style that I'm not a fan of, and I think we've come leaps and bounds beyond that, and readers are more intelligent, or creators feel like readers they can be a little bit more intelligent in delivering their stories, and I feel like this one was 10 steps back. This particular writer, Priest, I don't know why, I just cannot connect with this writing style. I don't think it was as bad here in this issue. I thought some of the exchanges and some of the recap exposition was very dumbed down and very classic, though. I will give it that. It did have a classic feel, but not in the good way, in my personal opinion. It just is not my style. So if you like it and you're a fan of Priest, that's fine. No disrespect to him or to you. It's not my style, and I don't like it. And it took me out of the story a little bit. And the same thing with the lettering. The straight tails on the things and the black boxes it's the same problem I have with the lettering in Deathstroke, because it's the same lettering. And whatever. Nitpicks aside, I still thought this was better than Deathstroke, but not quite as good as the other two, but it's still a fine finale, and the endings of all three of these stories made it better. So the ending of this story, and this is where I'm getting to the spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to wait, come back, skip ahead, whatever. I'm going to spoil. So the end of this story, Deathstroke, he can't save his son. He's keeps trying. Jericho's trying to stop him, and he's like, I'm your son too. He's not even listening, doesn't care, doesn't hear him. So Deathstroke comes back and he says, you know what, you've cost me everything. I can't change it now. I don't have this higher consciousness. I can't get back into the Speed Force, so you know what, I quit. And he throws his helmet on the ground and walks away. So Deathstroke is apparently done, and that's going to play out in Deathstroke number 20 and beyond. Wally Kid Flash does get his Speed Force back, or his speed powers back, by the way. And then the backup story for the Teen Titans is by Benjamin Percy, pencils by Koi Pham, inks by Wade von Grawbadger, and colors by Jim Charlampidis, and still its letters by Wally Schubert. And this story, Wally is like, he's like overwhelmed, and Raven kind of helps him calm down, and then the Titans are arguing. Damian's arguing with them and everything, and that he caused this because of his daddy issues and everything. And it's just this 2-page story, and Damian, classic style, he's a big finger pointing at him and says, "There's no Kid Flash, not anymore, because you're fired." And it's to be continued in Teen Titans. So again, a very classic feel to this. I will give it that. So the next story is the Titans story, and this one is written by Dan Abnett, with art by Brett Booth and Norm Rappin on inks, and Andrew Dahlhaus on colors. Still same lettering, so I still got a problem with the lettering. Sorry. So this is also a, I think it's a 2-page story that's continued in the Titans number 12, and they find out that because of the changes that they made in the time stream, and this is a big spoiler, that Damian caused, Wally now has a pacemaker, and if he continues running and using the Speed Force powers, he could die. So he can no longer be the Flash. That's it. He's done. No more speeding, no more Deathstroke, and no more Kid Flash on the Teen Titans. Not a good day for any of the characters involved here. So I thought these endings of these stories made this book. Yes, they're shock value. Yes, they're cliffhangers. And yes, they're going to be resolved at some point in time. We all know that. That's the way you do it with comics. But it was still exciting and unexpected, and it brought up my appreciation for this book overall. So overall, for this issue, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, which is a point higher than I gave Deathstroke. So there you go. I love the outcomes of all of these. I love the art, and the story itself was a pretty decent finale. And it gave us some closure, but it still opened up a bunch of other questions, and then you got to follow whichever characters you're fans of into their books and see what happens with them going forward. So it was pretty cool in that way. Overall, the entire Lazarus Contract event, I think I would give it a 4 1/4, because yeah, not quite, as good as it could have been, but much better than it had the right to be, considering some of the nitpicks that I had personally. So 4 1/4 for the overall story, 4 out of 5 for the Teen Titans annual special, whatever you want to call it, DC's Previews World. Make up your mind what you're calling this book, please. Anyway, that's my score. So hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Comic Frontline. And you can check me out on my channel, Brent Fowler, where I do a weekly series called Monday Musings, talking about random thoughts on my brain in 4 minutes or less. So you can tune into that. You can also find me on LastEverPress.com, Zone4Podcast.com, What the Card on YouTube, GonzoGoose.com if you'd like some lettering and logo design, and of course, ComicFrontline.com. So until next time, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you